Yeah.
Shane, I just because we haven't seen you in a couple weeks, what's an update on Dylan and Jakari to speak?
Doing well. In the middle of exit meetings right now with all the players, and those guys I'd say are both ahead of schedule. No different or nothing new on Dylan. Best thing for him is rest, and that's what he's doing. Our guys yesterday was the last day of class in Columbia, so they're getting ready to start up exams this week, and then they get a little bit of a break. But most of those guys are planning on being around, or those two guys in particular, plan on being around Columbia most of May. I want them to be able to get home for a little bit. But as far as recovery-wise, they're ahead of schedule. Both feel great, and time frame's still the same as far as as we head into the season.
So you had a spring to really analyze what a new staff is going to look like with many new players on the offensive side. As you digested, and you commented about the fundamental emphasis. How will this offense look different in your vision now that you have some working knowledge of it when you roll it out there to start the season?
Yeah, spring was good for Coach Browse and the rest of the offensive coaches to really get a feel for the personnel and strengths and areas that we need to be better at. But overall, I think he would say that Kendall really liked the group. That's what excited me about him, is he's shown in his career as an offensive coordinator that he can put together offenses that have the ability to run and throw, which is what I like. And then, I think our players are excited about it. That's coming back, from these meetings that I'm having with players, kind of wrapping up the spring. A lot of defensive players commenting on the excitement they have about the offense. And it's not like people are going to watch us and all of a sudden just going to look just drastically different than what we've done in the past. But Kendall has his own way of doing things and how we call things, playing with a little bit more tempo. But we've done plenty of up-tempo stuff in the past too. But it's a bigger part of his offense than maybe it was prior. But I'm excited. He had a good spring. Kendall did, kind of getting acclimated. Summer will be big for all of us, and eager to see what it looks like when we get into the season.
Can this offense produce even more production out of Nick Harburg, who obviously has the star potential?
Yeah, I would hope so. That's one thing Nick and I talked about specifically, not necessarily getting more out of him, but just how this offense is able to really, spread the ball around and get the ball into playmakers' hands. And Nick is one of those guys, along with a lot of guys that I feel like we have offensively at the skill positions. But Nick had a good spring. I think he really likes where we are, where he is, and got a big summer ahead of him. But with this offense and the ability to, have production with the key spots, certainly I think he's poised to have a big year, along with a lot of guys around him.
I know you've got a lot of new faces on the offensive line, and you're hoping for the best for Peak. But Shed Surratt, young guy who seems like, it's not going to matter what the depth chart is until the first 5 run out there, but he looks like he has made his mark early on.
Yeah, he's, to come in last year and start as a true freshman, and the moment's not too big for him. And, really it's 3 years in a row we've started at least one true freshman on the offensive line, and Shed was the guy last year for us, but it wasn't too big for him. He came in, he did a good job, and really in a lot of ways you look at him, you forget he's only in his first year, because in a lot of ways he seems like the old guy, and that's just his personality. he's a mature young man and handles his business the right way, but had a good spring. Missed the last week of it with an injury, but thought he did some really good stuff, and there's a lot of new faces on that offensive line, but it's nice to have a guy like Shed coming back that has a year here at Carolina where he played well and is poised to continue to grow and develop as a player.
From a defensive depth standpoint, are there any positions where you feel very comfortable in terms of where your depth is, and are there any spots where you feel like I need another guy or two to really step up for us to be as deep as I want to be?
I would say very comfortable the defensive tackle position. I think I've talked about that with you guys some in press conferences, just with who we brought back. Gabe off last year's team, Troy Pikes, who wasn't even here last year during spring practice. He's a year older. And then Noah Clark coming in as a true freshman. All the transfer guys that we've brought in. I really like our depth that we have there. Probably more depth at the defensive tackle position than, 24 would have been the best year when you had those guys, Tonka, Boogie, TJ, DeAndre Jules, Nick Barrett, Monkel Goodwine. But I think this group has a chance to, be even deeper in regards to the number of guys you feel comfortable putting in an SEC football game. Concern, probably the secondary position in some ways, corner and safety. Gerald Kilgore was a nickel or was a safety for us, and still could be, but he's working as a nickel right now, which affects the safety depth a little bit. And I like our guys there, Peyton Williams, David Busey, Currents had a really good spring, Kendall Daniels, but you've got some unproven guys there. behind or after David Busey and Peyton Williams. And then maybe the corner position a little bit too. Obviously Judge Collier and Vicari Swain have played a lot of football. DeMarcus Leach came out of the spring as really our third corner. But after that, there's a lot of, Cassie Barnes and some unknowns there. So you wish you had a little bit more depth. Maybe nickel, I feel good, but corner safety will be okay. But it's just it's a little concerning right now, just because you got some unproven guys there.
Shane, I know the rules change every year, especially in this day and age. But this new 5-and-5 thing, it's not official yet, but
Right.
it certainly looks like it's trending that way. How do you guys as coaches prepare for that? Like, say, if could Nick come back next year if this thing gets passed?
Yeah, you think about the positives of that, and there's certainly a lot of opportunities for that. And I think you saw it with the NFL draft last week, and David, guys that maybe went later than what they thought, not just in South Carolina, but a lot of places that are saying to themselves, man, with, let's face it, the money out there nowadays and the opportunity to prolong my college career, because a lot of these guys, they come back from the NFL and they tell our players, man, don't leave college too soon. Like, you got it pretty good. It's a business at the next level. So I think that opens up the door for a lot of things as far as preparing for it, see what happens. But that's when you look at our depth chart board that we have in our staff room, and you have guys that you right now think don't have another year but do have another year, there'll be a lot of strategizing in regards to recruiting and portal needs and how many guys you're planning on taking and recruiting at certain positions that you're basing that off of right now. Well, these guys are gone, but now if these guys maybe have another opportunity to come back, then that's a conversation I would certainly welcome for sure.
Were there a lot of, during this draft process, of guys calling about Brandon, Jalen, and Nick, people also projecting to 2027 and asking you about the guys that are currently on your roster and who might be ready next year?
Yeah, the Saturday before the draft, I was up in Chicago and I got a call from a team that wanted to talk about Brandon Cisse and Jalen Kilgore, and I told him I'm with my daughter, I've got 15 minutes and I got to be somewhere, but he made sure to keep 5 minutes open. He's like, well, I got you. Let me talk to you about your quarterback. And let me talk to you about, some other guys. So yes, the NFL teams, we've got a great relationship with them. We're one of the teams across the country. I don't think there's many that, they have all the access they want year round to come to practices and be in our building. So we've got a good relationship with those guys, and they're not idiots when they come out and watch practice. They see the other guys that are out there, and we've got some talented young guys for sure. But those were conversations that we had, even at Pro Day with some of those NFL personnel people that were out watching the guys participating in Pro Day. It was also, well, in that so-and-so and in that so-and-so. So they're always, always doing work, just like I am as a college coach, and I go to high schools and see freshmen and sophomores. It's kind of the same thing.
Shane, what's the coaches' calendars for these next couple of months? When are you guys in the office, and when are you taking you on vacations?
Yeah, so for us, May this week, really this week in the month of May, it's busy and slow. It's busy from a recruiting standpoint. So all of our coaches are the rule. That's one rule that changed, the number of coaches that can be on the road recruiting. So we've got whatever it is, 16 right now that are out, staff members. And that's good. So that started really right after spring practice ended. So we've got coaches that are on the road periodically throughout the month of May. Outside of being on the road recruiting, there's not a lot going on because it's that time period in between the end of the spring semester and summer school starting up. So May is a slower time outside of recruiting. We do have an official visit weekend coming up. We have another kind of prospect day in the middle of May that we're going to do just to get guys on campus like we've talked about. May's a little bit slower. June is certainly a grind, probably outside of the season and maybe even including the season, the busiest month of the year, June, just with summer camps, recruiting weekends, working with your own players because they're back on campus. That's what June is. And then for us as coaches, we're like most programs, that last week of June, first few weeks of July is when we want the coaches to be able to get away and kind of refresh and recharge and come back at the end of July ready to rock and roll. But it's still tough. I mean, that's the difference in college and the NFL. Those NFL guys, they go on vacation and they don't look at their phones for 5 weeks. We go on quote unquote vacation, but you're on your phone all day recruiting, and you still don't want to go far because your own players are on campus doing summer workouts too. So you don't want to just disappear and say, all right, fellas, I'll see you in 5 weeks. Like, we don't do that. We're working with them throughout the summer. But they need a break from us, meaning the players, and the coaches need a break from the players too, I think, before the season starts.
Was kind of curious, just in light of recent events, how you guys at South Carolina have educated your players about gambling and
Yeah.
the issues around that. With it being so rampant right now, have you had to increase the level of education you give your players?
Yeah, I mean, that's going back, years.
Yeah.
But I can remember at SEC meetings maybe 2 years ago, we had someone that came in and presented to the coaches about just being able to do the betting, not being able to do the betting, whatever it is, like on your phone where you can just make picks, and I don't even understand it all, but how you can't make some of the picks. So we brought in somebody after those meetings. I was like, we need to get this guy to come to Columbia to educate our guys, because it seems really simple because it's on your phone, but you can't do it. So we did that education. And then in light of the news that came out yesterday, there was immediately a text that went out from George Wynn, our director of football operations, to all of our players, just another reminder about what you can and can't do. But I'd say that's pretty consistent, Jordan, just throughout the year, whether it be during NCAA tournament March Madness, whether it be during the Masters, just friendly reminders to coaches too, about what you can and can't do on that.
It's obvious this is a huge season for you. I mean, it's been already discussed. Last year wasn't what you wanted it to be, but you've shown you can be up the mountain based on the offseason changes you made. What's your confidence level right now compared to going to other years? What's your feeling of pressure in terms of this time?
Yeah, I think the pressure aspect of it's the same every year. You're in the SEC, you're big time college football. You understand that it's year to year, so any outside noise or whatever, that's no more pressure than what I put on myself, because I take a lot of pride in the product we put on the field, and I know that I'm ultimately responsible. But I really like this group. I'm really excited about this team. I think you look back at last year and the number of people that came back off last year's team, that if they didn't believe in what we were doing from an overall just program standpoint, but also our opportunity to have a good team in 26, they wouldn't have stayed, because everybody wants to be a part of a winning program. Everybody stayed. Who we've been able to add, freshman class is very mature.
Sure.
The guys we brought in from the transfer portal, it's a mature group. But I think the best teams in college athletics nowadays, they're the teams that are the best teams, and they're old and they're experienced and they're mature, and that's what we were in 24. We weren't as in 25, and now we have a older team that's went through some struggles last year that I think are hardened and has some scars from that we haven't forgotten, and they've been very intentional about being better in 26. And nobody wants to hear it, but it's the truth. I mean, we weren't that far off in 26. You look at our games in the fourth quarter, we didn't coach well and play well enough in the fourth quarter. And in this league, you got to be able to finish games, and we didn't do a great job of finishing last season.
To that point, you mentioned that the last spring practice could have been a throwaway, but the guys looked like they wanted to run through a wall.
Yeah.
Does that just speak to maturity more
Yeah,
than anything else?
to me that speaks to the way the whole team has been since January. Like, ever since they've come back in January, they've just been very purposeful, very intentional, just do the work and really driven to be better. And that's what they were. Like, we talked about it, we don't have days to waste, and we talked about it that week, that a lot of teams across college football practice 13, 14, 15. They're just trying to get through, and I didn't sense that from our guys at all. They were trying to get better that week, and that was a good week for us. And that last practice that we went out there in light of a spring game was a really good one too.
Yeah.